think there were not many people who understood just how broad his interests were and how supportive he was of an astonishingly wide range.
Not many truly grasped the depth of his interests or the extent of his quiet support across an astonishing range of causes. For years, the Queen's innermost thoughts remained guarded. But recently, Princess Anne broke that silence, sharing a powerful message about Kate Middleton, one that left both Prince William and King Charles stunned. Everyone believed they knew how the future of the monarchy would unfold, first King Charles, then Prince William, a smooth, predictable, and traditional transition. That was the expectation. Yet, behind the grand facade of Buckingham Palace, on a foggy London night, something occurred that would alter everything. And very few outside those palace walls had any idea. It began with Princess Anne. Known for her consistency, her quiet presence, and her refusal to seek the spotlight, she earned respect through her reliability. But Anne had been carrying a burden, a truth she could no longer keep to herself. It wasn't something she chose to bear, but it had been entrusted to her, a secret left by Queen Elizabeth II. Carefully written before her passing, it was her final wish, one that had remained unspoken until now. Courtiers not announced to the public, something just for Anne to know and when the time was right, reveal. What did this letter say and how will it affect the royal family? Keep watching to find out. The Queen's message did not mention Charles. It didn't even mention William. Instead, it named someone else, someone unexpected, someone the Queen believed could save the future of the crown, Catherine, the Princess of Wales. The palace was quiet that night. Outside, the fog wrapped around the iron gates. Inside, behind thick walls and long hallways, Anne made her choice and decided that was the perfect time to speak up. She called for King Charles and Prince William to meet her. No staff, no advisors, just the three of them. The room they met in was old and serious, heavy curtains, dark wood, portraits of kings and queens watching from the walls. Anne didn't make a speech. She simply unfolded a letter, worn soft from where she had held it over, and placed it on the table. Charles picked it up first. His hands shook slightly. William leaned forward, frowning, reading every word twice. No one spoke. The clock on the mantel ticked loudly in the silence. Outside, the city slept, unaware. The Queen's letter was. She saw Catherine not merely as a future queen consort, but as the future of the monarchy itself. In her eyes, the crown's survival didn't depend on a king, but on a woman the public already admired, someone who had earned their trust through her actions, not through inheritance. Initially, Charles resisted. Breaking the silence, he muttered, "This isn't how it's done," almost as if trying to convince himself. He looked weary, older, somehow. William remained silent, staring at the letter, his hands tightening and loosening in his lap. And didn't argue. She hadn't come to debate. She was there because the Queen had trusted her to deliver the message, and because, deep down, Anne believed it too. Catherine was unique. She didn't just fit into the old mold, she revived faith in the institution. Eventually, William spoke, his voice low and uncertain. "Why didn't she tell us before?" Anne gave a small, sorrowful smile. "Maybe she thought you weren't ready to hear it." They sat there for a long time, the three of them, sharing the same heavy air, all aware that whatever they chose to do next would change everything. Elsewhere in the palace, Catherine was in a different room that evening, unaware of what was unfolding. She had just tucked George, Charlotte, and Louis into bed. Sitting by a window with a cooling cup of tea beside her, she gazed out at the fog. She felt uneasy but couldn't say why. She didn't know that, upstairs, the path of her life, and the future of the monarchy, was being rewritten. She had never sought power. All she had ever done was try to serve, quietly and diligently. She smiled when needed, listened when it mattered. She had always turned to listen and fiercely protected her children. The Queen had seen that and believed it was exactly what the future needed. Now, in the meeting room, the letter rested between them like a living thing. Anne rose at last, smoothing her skirt. She didn't wait for Charles or William to agree. She already knew what their mother would have wanted, truth spoken, risks taken. "Whatever we decide," she said quietly, the world is changing. We can either change with it or be left behind. No one responded. Yet in the silence, a decision began to take shape, quiet, persistent, like the first sliver of light at dawn. The monarchy the world thought it knew was already evolving. Not with a dramatic declaration, not with fanfare, but through a single night, a whispered truth, and a woman unaware she was on the brink of being written into history. What followed will surprise you. The next morning unfolded slowly over London, heavy with grey skies. As light spilled across the city, it revealed a changed Buckingham Palace. Inside a private room, tucked deep within its walls, a secret meeting was about to begin, senior royals and trusted advisers called together in urgency. Yet nothing about it felt ordinary. The atmosphere buzzed with tension and unspoken questions. Princess Anne entered first. She didn't resemble a rebel, she looked like a commander fulfilling a final duty. In her hand, a plain leather folder. Inside, a letter capable of shaking the foundations of everything they knew. King Charles followed. Though he wore a composed expression, the strain on his face betrayed the truth. And finally came Prince William, dignified, steady, but with a fire in his eyes that hinted at the storm ahead. It was the moment everything changed. Anne didn't hesitate. She laid the folder on the grand mahogany table and spoke with a tone that left no room for debate. This is Her Majesty's final wish, not mine, not Charles's, not William's, hers. Everyone leaned in, their eyes scanning the Queen's precise, elegant handwriting. The message was unmistakable. Catherine, though not born into royalty, had proven herself through resilience and spirit. She was the future. It wasn't about lineage anymore, it was about heart, about endurance. The Queen hadn't tried to rewrite the line of succession officially, she knew the complexities, but she had made her desires unmistakably clear. Catherine wasn't simply to stand beside the next king, she was to be queen in her own right. The room erupted. Murmurs of disbelief, anxiety, and outrage filled the air. King Charles slammed his hand down on the table, voice trembling. This is madness. I thought last night was some kind of joke. You can't just rewrite succession. And met his gaze with steady calm. Mother wasn't confused. She knew exactly what she wanted. Then William broke the silence, his voice low and raw. And what about me? What happens to everything I was raised for? Anne's expression softened. You're still essential. You're still needed. But for the monarchy to survive, it must evolve. Mother saw that, she wanted us to see it too. William looked down, fists clenched. It felt like a betrayal. But somewhere deep inside, he already knew. He had seen it coming. Catherine faced storms he could barely endure himself. He had watched the people fall in love with her. She didn't seek the spotlight. The spotlight found her. And she never let it burn her. Maybe, he thought bitterly, she had been the real queen all along. Now the world went on as if nothing had changed. No announcements were made. No headlines screamed the truth. But inside, a quiet storm was growing. Catherine, unaware of the full drama, kept doing what she always did, visiting hospitals, comforting children, fighting for mental health causes. Every handshake, every kind word stitched her tighter into the future the Queen had imagined. Still, the pressure inside Buckingham Palace grew. Rumors leaked. Tabloids whispered of secret meetings and royal unrest. Anne, steady as a rock, held the line. She knew there was no going back. It was only a matter of time before the world caught up to the truth. For centuries, Buckingham Palace had stood as a symbol of unbreakable tradition. But after Queen Elizabeth's death, tiny cracks started to show. A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. King Charles III wore the crown now. But it didn't fit him the same way it had fit her. His reign was expected, but not embraced. People respected the monarchy, but many weren't sure they still loved it. Charles, with all his passions and opinions, struggled to be the still, steady symbol his mother had been. The scars of his past, his messy divorce, his long road with Camilla, never fully healed in the public's mind. The crown shone, but the man beneath it often Prince William, on the other hand, was burdened with a heavy responsibility. On paper, he was the future, a young, relatable royal. But every move he made was under intense scrutiny, and every mistake was amplified. Even his marriage to Catherine, which was a beacon of hope for the family, became a double-edged sword. The more the public adored her, the more difficult it became for William to shine independently. Then there was Harry, launching accusations from across the Atlantic, only deepening the rifts that had barely begun to heal. William could feel the monarchy's foundation shaking beneath him. Every day, he sensed the instability. After the Queen's death, the nation initially united in grief, but that sense of unity was fleeting. Polls began showing that more and more young people were questioning the monarchy's relevance. In places like Australia and the Caribbean, the calls to sever ties with the crown grew louder. The royal family could feel it, the old loyalty was fading. Tradition alone wouldn't be enough to sustain them. They needed to prove their worth once again, and they knew, deep down, that no press conference or public relations effort could save them. What they truly needed was someone real, someone the people could trust, someone like Catherine. Remarkably, Queen Elizabeth had sensed all this long before the world noticed the cracks. She had made her decision quietly, without fanfare. She trusted that, when the time came, those who truly believed in the monarchy would follow her lead. She had seen the future, and in it, Catherine's face appeared, not because of royal blood, but because of hope. And that's where things get interesting. Stay tuned to find out what happened next. But despite this revelation from AIE, something else began to disturb the royal family. The royal family's support had dwindled significantly. The public no longer backed them the way they once had. King Charles could find no peace. He spent countless nights awake, poring over history books, searching for guidance from past kings who had ruled through turmoil. Prince William bore his fear in a different way. It weighed on him like a stone in his chest, especially when he gazed into his children's trusting, innocent eyes. He wanted to believe he was preparing them for a future built on service and honor, but what if that future never materialized? Catherine, however, faced the situation with a quiet acceptance. She understood the world was evolving, regardless of whether the palace was prepared for it. Her calmness, resilience, and lack of ambition for power made her the unexpected figurehead, the one the crown might need most. She never chased the crown, and perhaps that was exactly why she was fit for it. Grateful, Emerald's time acknowledged the subtle practices that led to this moment, time now chasing her. On the outside, the monarchy's facade remained unbroken, grand ceremonies, elegant dinners, and polished royal portraits. Yet beneath the surface, an unforeseen shift was occurring. A subtle but persistent fault line was growing, quietly building tension that threatened to undermine the palace's very foundations. At the core of it all was a truth too risky to voice: the monarchy's pristine image was more fragile than anyone was willing to admit. And now, the House of Windsor, built over centuries, stood on the edge, and the world watched, holding its breath. Would it fall or would it rise again? Not through bloodlines or laws, but through the quiet strength of a woman who never asked for a crown but might wear it better than anyone before her. Let's find out. So, as the saying goes, nothing stays hidden under the sun forever. The Queen's wish eventually reached those outside the palace, thanks to some palace maids who had been observing and overhearing everything happening inside. However, not everyone supported the Queen's decision. Some argued that it was wrong for Catherine to take over while her husband, the rightful heir, was still present. They also claimed that Catherine spent most of her time caring for children and lacked any experience in politics. On the other hand, another group supported the Queen's wish, believing that she knew what was best. This debate led people to start digging into Catherine's life. What they uncovered will shock you. So when they started digging, they discovered that Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was born on January 9, 1982, at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading. She didn't grow up in castles or wear crowns, but her family lived comfortably and valued hard work. Her father, Michael Middleton, was a flight dispatcher, and her mother, Carol, had once worked as a flight attendant. On her father's side, the family had deep roots in British society, even hosting royals in the early 1900s. On her mother's side, her ancestors were coal miners, giving Catherine a rare balance. Between tradition and humility, when Catherine was just 2 years old, her family moved to Amman, Jordan, where her father worked for British Airways. There, she attended an English-speaking nursery school, learning early how to adapt to new cultures. Thank you for your time as well. I always think it's before Christmas time. It's probably the last thing about sort of by 1986, they returned to England and settled in Berkshire. Catherine, now 4, was enrolled at St. Andrew's School, where she quickly showed signs of independence and maturity. Later, she began part-time boarding, learning how to take care of herself at a young age. In 1987, something important happened. Catherine's mother, Carol, started a mail-order party supplies business called Party Pieces. What began as a small venture grew into a thriving company, providing Catherine and her siblings with excellent educational opportunities. But even more important, it taught Catherine the value of patience, resilience, and building something meaningful from the ground up. By 1995, the Middleton family moved to Bucklebury, a quiet village surrounded by nature. Catherine switched schools, eventually enrolling at Marlborough College, where she really came into her own. In Marlborough, she wasn't just another student, she became known for her leadership, especially as the captain of the girls' field hockey team. During her time there, Kate Middleton also completed the demanding Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, showing she was determined and hard-working. And humble around this time she also underwent minor surgery to remove a lump on her head but returned quietly to her studies without drama. After finishing school, Catherine Middleton faced a major decision. She had been accepted to the University of Edinburgh but chose instead to take a gap year to explore and grow. First, she travelled to Florence, studying art at the British Institute. Then, she volunteered in Chile through Raleigh International, working on community projects and trekking through tough landscapes. She even worked as a deckhand at the busy port of Southampton, never shying away from hard, unglamorous work. Eventually, she enrolled at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, first studying psychology, then switching to art history. Catherine joined the Lumsden Club, organising charity events and serving local communities. To help with expenses, she took a part-time job as a waitress, showing again that she wasn't afraid of hard work or getting her hands dirty. At St. Andrews, something life-changing happened. Catherine met Prince William. They became close friends, sharing a love of art history. By 2002, their friendship blossomed into romance after they moved into a house together with other friends. Between tradition and humility, when Catherine was just 2 years old, her family moved to Amman, Jordan, where her father worked for British Airways. There, she attended an English-speaking nursery school, learning early how to adapt to new cultures. Thank you for your time as well. I always think it's before Christmas time. It's probably the last thing about sort of by 1986, they returned to England and settled in Berkshire. Catherine, now 4, was enrolled at St. Andrew's School, where she quickly showed signs of independence and maturity. Later, she began part-time boarding, learning how to take care of herself at a young age. In 1987, something important happened. Catherine's mother, Carol, started a mail-order party supplies business called Party Pieces. What began as a small venture grew into a thriving company, providing Catherine and her siblings with excellent educational opportunities. But even more important, it taught Catherine the value of patience, resilience, and building something meaningful from the ground up. By 1995, the Middleton family moved to Bucklebury, a quiet village surrounded by nature. Catherine switched schools, eventually enrolling at Marlborough College, where she really came into her own. In Marlborough, she wasn't just another student, she became known for her leadership, especially as the captain of the girls' field hockey team. During her time there, Kate Middleton also completed the demanding Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, showing she was determined and hard-working. And humble around this time she also underwent minor surgery to remove a lump on her head but returned quietly to her studies without drama. After finishing school, Catherine Middleton faced a major decision. She had been accepted to the University of Edinburgh but chose instead to take a gap year to explore and grow. First, she travelled to Florence, studying art at the British Institute. Then, she volunteered in Chile through Raleigh International, working on community projects and trekking through tough landscapes. She even worked as a deckhand at the busy port of Southampton, never shying away from hard, unglamorous work. Eventually, she enrolled at the University of St Andrews in Scotland, first studying psychology, then switching to art history. Catherine joined the Lumsden Club, organising charity events and serving local communities. To help with expenses, she took a part-time job as a waitress, showing again that she wasn't afraid of hard work or getting her hands dirty. At St Andrews, something life-changing happened. Catherine met Prince William. They became close friends, sharing a love of art history. By 2002, their friendship blossomed into romance after they moved into a house together with other friends. So when these findings were brought to light, she genuinely immersed herself in causes that mattered deeply to her. Her charity work became a defining part of her identity, proving she had found the perfect balance between royal duty and personal compassion. One of her most touching acts happened quietly in 2018, without seeking any attention. Catherine donated 7 inches of her hair to the Little Princess Trust, a charity that creates wigs for children undergoing cancer treatment. Inspired by her hairdresser, Joey Wheeler, she made the decision privately, a reminder that the most heartfelt acts of kindness are often the ones done away from the spotlight. It was a simple but powerful gesture echoing the quiet generosity she'd shown for years. Now, many thought all of that was for the camera, but it wasn't, because long before Catherine married Prince William, she was already deeply involved in charity work. In 2007, Kate Middleton organized a photography exhibition to raise funds for UNICEF and later hosted a charity roller disco that raised $100,000 for the Oxford Children's Hospital and mental health initiatives. Her early visits to hospices and work with sick children left a lasting impression on her, shaping her future as a royal dedicated to causes involving children and mental health. After becoming the Duchess of Cambridge, Catherine's commitment only grew stronger. Just months after their wedding, she and William set up a charitable gift fund instead of accepting wedding presents, directing support to 26 organizations. So when these findings were brought to light, she needed time to think about it. So although Catherine is yet to give a clear answer, one thing her response made certain is that the Queen made the right choice, choosing someone who could balance the heavy demands of the crown with the delicate needs of the royal family. So what are your thoughts on Catherine's response? How do you interpret King Charles's and William's reactions? And most importantly, how do you view the Queen's decision? Share your opinions with us in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen and you will enjoy it. On the other hand, another group supported the Queen's wish, believing that she knew what was best. This debate led people to start digging into Catherine's life. What they uncovered will shock you. So when they started digging, they discovered that Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was born on January 9, 1982, at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading. She didn't grow up in castles or wear crowns, but her family lived comfortably and valued hard work. Her father, Michael Middleton, was a flight dispatcher, and her mother, Carol, had once worked as a flight attendant. On her father's side, the family had deep roots in British society, even hosting royals in the early 1900s. On her mother's side, her ancestors were coal miners, giving Catherine a rare balance. Despite their growing relationship, they kept a low profile, avoiding public attention. But by 2004, the world caught on after they were photographed vacationing together in Switzerland. Their journey wasn't without bumps. In 2007, after years under intense media pressure, Kate and Prince William briefly broke up. Catherine later admitted it was a painful time, but it made her stronger. She handled the split with quiet dignity and grew even more confident. After a few months apart, they rekindled their relationship stronger than ever. During their long courtship, Catherine faced public scrutiny, even earning the nickname, Waity Katie, from tabloids, but she never lashed out. She stayed calm, gracious, and focused on her own path. Then in November 2010, the couple announced their engagement, and Catherine began preparing for royal life, officially going back to using her full name. On April 29, 2011, Catherine married Prince William in a ceremony watched around the world. She became the Duchess of Cambridge, stepping into a life of duty and public service. But even with all the royal expectations, Catherine remained herself, grounded, kind, and full of quiet strength. In the years that followed, she and William became the image of a modern royal couple. Together, they welcomed 3 children, Prince George in 2013, Princess Charlotte in 2015, and Prince Louis in 2018, each arrival bringing joy not just to the royal family but to the world. Through it all, Catherine balanced motherhood, royal duties, and charity work with grace. Catherine's story showed that becoming royal wasn't about wearing crowns, it was about heart, hard work, and staying true to who you are. But that was not all. As Catherine's role in the royal family grew, she began to shine not just as a figure of grace but as a passionate force for good. She didn't simply appear at events for the sake of